welcome to part 3 now. So we're gonna go over the bridging concepts for mount escapes now. So first thing, when you're bridging, let's avoid giving our backs away, right? It's quite a common scenario that you kind of panic a little bit for mounts and you have to end up bridging and kind of turning. Then the person's just basically changing their stance and just getting into kind of like a back situation for you. So there's mainly 2 ways we kind of bridge a person. Well, there's one fundamental rule you need to follow. We need to take at least one of her frames away. So that's when you're most likely to bridge someone. A really traditional kind of way we teach beginners is we grab the wrist, right? And we trap this wrist in between. We pull the person down and we kind of bridge them over, right? So that's the most likely way you're gonna bridge someone. Now, if you can see, if she releases this wrist as I bridge, she'll always be able to base. She also has the ability to brace on the leg. So if I try to bridge, she can flare that out and stop you from doing that as well. So that's where people really add this kind of foot trap drill as well. So if you have both of them together, that's probably your best likelihood of bridging someone. But in the real world, this kind of 2-on-1 control is quite difficult to get a hold of, especially later on when you reach the blue belt stages or even higher levels of white belt. And your most traditional control position is where Tamara takes like a crossface on one side and she has an underhook on the other one. And we can follow the same approach as that kind of 2-on-1 grip that we had. If you notice here, she has an underhook in place, so if we're able to trap this underhook in place, we've taken that base away. And if I can get a hold of the foot as well, we've also taken that away. So in theory, I should be able to bridge her over. But again, she could just flare that out and base. She could also take this hand out and base. And a really important thing is, if she beats this elbow by walking her hands up, I won't be able to bridge her anymore either. So a little minimal kind of adjustment that she does, my bridge is gone. So we really have to capitalize when we do have a good crunch in place and be quite explosive about it. All of these bridges, they are technical, but they're also quite explosive. You need to work on your bridge to get good at it, right? So from here, I trap this in place. I would avoid trying to hug the person, just kind of get used to using your lats to trap it. And then I'm gonna take that little step over the top if I can. Now, it isn't necessary. A lot of good people, they're just good at bridging by just keeping their toes on the mat and their heels towards their butt, and they're quite explosive about it. Most of the work's gonna be done through my right leg because I gotta do a bit of rotation. But again, I can start off over here, maybe just kind of trapping this in place. This is the leg that's gonna generate the power. So big bridge, and then I roll over on top, and then try to get into a safe position anytime you bridge, because your posture is already broken, you see? So I don't want to get tied up into other techniques, so I'm going to go to a double bicep grip and try to get to a good posture after that. Now, we can take that same approach to the other side. So if I rotate over here, so before I was strapping the arm on this side and bridging her over to that direction. I could potentially switch sides, and it's quite a nice combination to do where you get jammed on the first attempt, so then you change sides and you go to the opposite side. Just a little arm work that we need to do. We need to stop her from basing on this side now, so I'm gonna try my best to just trap this arm in place. Still look for that hook on the other side, and this arm is just gonna create a little bit of power by kind of like pushing her head over to the other side. So again, we'll have pretty much the same bridge, but to the opposite side instead. Again, follow the same rules, bicep grips, back up, and get to a good posture. So those are your 2 traditional bridges. There are bridge scenarios that are a bit more kind of like trap orientated, whereas in I'm setting up this trap. I'm a little bit like one step ahead, and a really good situation is a lot of times people get a neck hug on you on one side, and on the other side we might have a good elbow position like this and a punch block. And often when we have this and we're bothering someone with it, they'll often try to swim inside to maybe grab your wrist or pin it down like this. And that's a great opportunity to get to that 2-on-1 grip where we go like this. And now we can supplement our elbow as well with this bridge, which makes it a little bit more powerful. And it's one of my favorite kind of bridge escapes because often I'm just focusing on elbow escapes like this, right? And if I ever see this arm based, I will kind of like bother the person with it, hoping that they'll swim inside and then I can grab the wrist. It can backfire though. Sometimes they can use their knee instead and then trap your arm. All right, so be cautious of that as well. But sometimes they'll just swim inside. You'll be able to catch this wrist, time it really well, and then you can use your elbow as well across the stomach to bridge the person over and get up on top. So if you can partner that up with the elbow escape, it's a fantastic approach to your bridges, and it takes less power than the traditional one. Other than those, again, there's not many other variations of the bridges, right? There's even an arm wrap situation or a punch block on this side. If the person's got double underhooks on you, this is usually quite dangerous for us, but if we can clamp this down, we are still able to kind of pull off a bridge. Maybe not to roll the person over. Sometimes we just use bridges to get to a better situation. For example, she has double underhooks around, which is worst case scenario. I want to kind of get at least one of them away. So if I just threaten a bridge, maybe I'll be able to slip this out. And now she only has one underhook on this side, and maybe I can use another bridge to get to a good elbow positioning, and now I'm safe in the elbow escape. And that's how I want you to think about the bridges, as a supplement to a lot of other techniques, not just trying to roll someone over instead. The last segment we're going to go over is kipping escapes, which is sort of like a bridge. So your standard kipping escape, we usually kind of try to get to a double kind of C grip to the inside of our partner's hips with our elbows kind of in place. We bring our heels towards our butt as much as we can, and we do a bridge trying to push the person off, either over the top of us like this or off to the side. We bring our knees together and we kind of do this like kipping action to get to some sort of butterfly guard. And it's probably the most used technique at the higher level, right? But again, it does require you having those two good elbow positionings, or at least that elbow frame and the hand to the hip, so we can generate a little bit more of a lift with it. The double grip I recommend is a little bit stronger, but sometimes harder to get to. The elbow escape position is another great one, but we got to flare our elbow a little bit more. So this one's a bit more sideways action, and then kipping to try to get to some sort of one leg X position like this. So two kipping escapes variation. I'll show you from this angle over here. Tamara's going to try to keep a little bit of pressure onto me to trace sticky, so you can see the kipping action a little bit better. So exactly. So I'm going to go big bridge, go like this to try to kip. All right. They'll often get base up like that. They'll often go to a side. I'll show it again, but to a sideways on now. So this is more of a side action kipping where I go off to the side, then I kip in, and then we can often go to one leg X's or something. The last kipping escape, and might be one of the more difficult one, is a scenario where she has an underhook and a crossface like this, which is probably the most common scenario you find yourselves on. So for this one, we're really going to focus on making the person base to this side. So on the opposite side, we're going to take on this side, we're going to take like a C grip on the lat, but we're going to keep this quite trapped in, because again, if she flares that elbow, I'll get my arm isolated into kind of arm triangles. And on the other side, I'm going to have that hip grip, ideally to the inside. If I can't, I'm just going to have to rely on being it to the outside. Big bridge to that side, and then we're going to do that kipping escape one more time. So go like this, and then I'm trying to kip, and come in. All right? So what we're relying on there is Tamara taking that arm out to base. So that will give us a little opportunity in slow motion if she takes the arm out to kind of get to a good kipping position, which is both hands on the lat or hips, so we can bring our knees together and then trying to kip and push until we're able to slide through. And those are the most kind of important bridging concepts and kipping concepts we have in this mount lesson. Lovely.